I quickly want to go back before we look forward.
Sure.
How did you get the interview with Mr. Maduro?
It took 4 years. It took 4 years of negotiating, and I want to give full credit.
Like you said, a fruit basket, or
No.
how'd you get the
By the way,
interview?
I also wish it had been a Gulfstream. It was actually you could, and I think you still will. You will be able to again soon fly to Caracas commercially.
How do you pronounce it?
Caracas. Now, here's an interesting little anecdote for you, Tom. Because Venezuela had long been an outcast of the international community and, without question, at the time sanctioned by the United States, it was no longer in the Sabre computer system that the airlines used to ticket. And so when I went to JFK to get on a plane to Panama City, from which I transferred to Caracas, it was like going back to the 70s, man. They had to write CCS on a tag for my bags.
Very cool. What is the behavioral distinction of being 6 feet, 10 feet, 12 feet from Mr. Maduro versus the distance we all face right now? What is the characteristic of meeting him?
I'll tell you, I think the first thing you realize is that running a government, whether it's a democratically elected government or it is effectively a dictatorship like that Maduro was running, requires skill, requires cunning, requires ability. In fact, you might argue that running a dictatorship is harder in some respects than running a democratically elected government, because all of the infighting among factions, all the backstabbing takes place in private. At least here we see it play out in public. And so you quickly gain an appreciation for the fact that he's not some pushover. Of course he's a bully. Of course he's a thug. Of course Venezuela, under his rule, committed all kinds of atrocities. But you respect the fact that he is a tough customer.
Now that he is out, how do you think this will play out in Venezuela?
Well, I think it's playing out as we see it at the moment. There's no way to install a democratically elected government in Venezuela overnight, just because of the fact that Edmundo González won in 2024 as sort of this stand-in candidate for the opposition. Doesn't mean that you can put him or put Maria Corina Machado in place. Venezuela's institutions aren't ready for a democratic administration. The Supreme Court, for example, the judicial system, the police, the military, none of that is ready for democratic rule. And so whether they like it or not, this is kind of like Spain in the middle of the 1970s, right? When the Franco regime gave way to democracy, the same people were running the show.
Are you reading Hemingway this weekend? Is that what you're trying to tell us?
I'm certainly thinking back to Hemingway.
I mean,
we all should.
Well, we all should. I mean, that's absolutely right. I got 8 ways to go here, Eric. But the thing I see here is you're hardwired out of Toronto to hydrocarbons. So Canada is not all that big of hydrocarbons, and all of a sudden, boom, it is because of technology and all that. My experts are telling me the analog of Venezuela to Canada is not accurate. What do you read out of the Toronto Globe and Mail and the rest of it?
The easy conclusion to draw is that every incremental barrel of Venezuelan production is a barrel of Canadian oil sands crude that will not be refined in. No. In fact, I was talking to our colleague Javier Blas, a fantastic energy columnist out of London, about this morning. No, that's not true. First of all, there's spare capacity in the American refinery system. Secondly, there's every reason potentially not to refine Kuwaiti crude, Iraqi crude, Saudi crude in order to continue to import Canadian crude. And by the way, not all the Canadian crude goes all the way to the Gulf. Some of it gets refined in the Chicago area. Some of it gets refined in the Midwest. And so if there's a ton of new production out of Venezuela, yes, perhaps that's on balance a negative for the Alberta tar sands. But let's get real here. There's no prospect of a ton of new production coming out of Venezuela anytime soon. Over the next 18, 24 months, potentially, I don't know, according to Javier in our conversations, 300,000 to 500,000 barrels of crude. This is what he's talking about in his column today, by the way, which I urge everybody to read. Javier Blas, our energy columnist, talking about Venezuela. Why? Because Venezuela's oil infrastructure has been so neglected, has been so degraded, that there are easy fixes, right? Chevron can pump a little extra OPEX, not even CAPEX, OPEX into Venezuela and optimize some of its recovery. Harry Sargent, the third out of Florida, Donald Trump's friend, can throw some money into Venezuela and get some of this low, as Javier puts it, low-hanging crude.